Hey, conventioNOT listener. Thanks for joining. It's been about 2 months since you've heard Mike and I together on a show. Often our airwaves are consumed with exciting guests, artists, entrepreneurs, all these sorts of things. But it's been a heck of a month in 2021. It's been quite a start. We've got our coronavirus still happening. We've got a new president. We have some of the craziness that's been happening throughout the nation and even more so throughout the world. Just like usual, Mike and I took a couple minutes to record our thoughts, our commentary, and even talk a little bit about what we got going on and what our goals are for 2021. So it might not be just a mastering of the year, but we're going to do our best to do our best. Stick around, listen up, and we hope you enjoy the show.
What's up, Ryan?
Back at it, buddy.
Good to see you, mate.
Yeah. Happy 2021.
Yeah, I had to double check. I'm kind of upset to admit. The last time we had a kind of crew-only episode was November 5th.
Really?
Yeah, dude. That's inexcusable. That's inexcusable. We can do better.
I agree with you. I think we're gonna round third on 2021 with the show, and we're blessed with a bunch of listeners, but I think we're gonna turn it up this year.
Well, as we sit here and record, it's January 21st, 1/21/21. Yeah, I guess a couple things have occurred over the past couple months. We're probably not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about the world as much as where we fit into it. But yeah, welcome to the new year, Ryan. Welcome to the new year, everybody else. We thought we'd just have a little catch-up show. Ryan and I don't have a problem talking on a near daily basis off the air, but yeah, we realized we've been slacking a little bit and are excited to kind of talk about this next year and the show and us and all of the lot.
Sure. Well, we've been up to stuff though. We both of us had some personal travel, a bunch of business travel, really, between the two of us, right? In that space there.
Yeah. As much as that can look like these days. A bunch relative, right? Like the last couple months have been a lot more kind of resembling normalcy, right? Than the previous 10 have.
Yeah. Save for my family, the family events were canceled or modified. So that was a little bit like non-traditional. But I think I hope for the majority of those families that made that decision, it seems like it kind of worked a little bit, at least for Christmas, because the numbers say that.
It was an alternative Christmas. It was an alternative Christmas and alternative New Year's for sure.
Yeah.
And it hits
Thanksgiving's
home.
mine. I think our last episode was before Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving's my holiday anyway. I'm not.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was like I said, it was early November. It's weird thinking about Christmas, no one being around. I guess I've kind of grown not accustomed to that, but just with us having moved away from home, quite a ways away from home, the holidays are almost consistently like they're harder now. Like I know everyone always says that, but like the holidays are harder when you get older and when you have less people in your life. Like it's like you just transition from holidays being this kind of stressful, overwhelming like obligations and all this stuff to like you're like, well, I don't have a whole lot going on Thanksgiving, and that's not a good feeling. That's not a good. Be careful what you wish for.
Right. At minimum, it's a bit of a mirror, right? Like if you don't have anywhere to go, I think on a holiday, it's a mirror to yourself. You have to like hold it up and say like
that.
Right.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I got really lucky this year. I had Chops was out in early November. So I've had a couple visitors.
Shout out Sneakerheads episode.
Yep. Chris Latore was in the house. And then later that month, actually over Thanksgiving, my family was in town. My brother Dan. Shout out underwear episode, climbing over the dragon. Yeah, Dan and Fam were in town. So that was I know I just described what it's like to be alone on those holidays, but this year we weren't alone, and it was really it was heavy. It was heavy because you realized like how different of a year it's been. You know what I mean? Like these sorts of conversations, this form of interaction has become commonplace, and then you're in a space with someone. Like I know you just spent some time with your in-laws last weekend, and it's, I don't know about for you, man, but for me, I'm such like I'm a pretty emotional person, and I love people. Like I love my people. And when I get around them, it's consuming, and it is like, it's overwhelming, and it really, really reiterates like that shit that matters. The shit that matters, you know?
Yeah. It makes me feel lucky. I think as, like you said, as I get older, I think I feel luckier year by year. And, you know, it was, you know, it's modified this year a little bit, but I'm pretty fortunate. And I've got really cool in-laws is another thing.
Yeah, man.
It's kind of nice. You got good in-laws too.
I'm very, really very, very blessed in that I like my in-laws, you know, and I think they like me. I really don't. I can't imagine a different circumstance, but I know that most circumstances are different. Like
sometimes, yeah.
I don't know how dudes deal with that. I don't know how either part of the couple deals with that. Like, man, I didn't sign up to marry your whole family, bro. Like that is not what I signed up for.
Right. I think that's awkward and unfair. I really do. It's tough though. It's tough.
Yeah. Like I said, we're just lucky. You know, they're part of our lives, but we're lucky in that we like them. We like them. Right. So it's not a real problem. But if it was, yeah, I'd probably be looking to sever that somehow. I'm sorry, but I really would. Sure. I really would.
So I also made it to the Bourbon Trail on the in-between to pivot past the holiday time.
Let's hear about it.
It's good. I've started some, you know, as most of our listeners know, I made that pivot last year back up to Detroit. And so part of what I have is this, my house is 100 years old, I think next year. So the owner of the home, I should say one of the owners, because I'm not sure that this part of the house is 100 years old, but it's pretty close, I think, built this kind of like phenomenal bar. It's small, but it's like really well built and it still stands intact. So I've been working on building out that bar. And one of my latest connoisseurships has been whiskey. So made a little trip down there, met with some friends, and it was fun. It was great.
All right, so you got to back it up. You say the Bourbon Trail like it's a city or something, and I think people kind of know the region you're talking about, but
sure,
if people drink vodka, they don't know what you're talking about. So back it up a little bit and educate on why that is so specific.
Yeah, 100%. So, Bourbon Trail is probably something that's a little bit more of like a marketing term, and so if you Google the Bourbon Trail, you would probably see a bunch of maps that show you like a bunch of just different bourbon distilleries, everything from like the smallest to the biggest.
Sure.
But there's some connoisseurship with the aging of bourbon that's existed for a long time. And so over the like past decade or so, I mean, I've gotten into bourbon probably over the past decade or so, but it's become more and more of a hobby. And these distilleries have continued to age greater quantities of their whiskey. And so it's kind of rare in some cases, but where we went was Bardstown, Kentucky. It's kind of the center of the Bourbon Trail.
Okay.
I would say from a perspective. And then, you know, there's I don't know how deep I should get, Mike. You know, I get real deep into this shit. So
I'll stop you. Don't worry.
Okay. All right, cool. That's fair. Keep me honest here. Keep me honest. I think that, you know, places like Buffalo Trace, we went to Buffalo Trace, which is like the biggest, you know, maybe one of the bigger brands of bourbon.
I was going to say that's a brand, right? Okay. So Bardstown is where a bunch of companies have set up distilleries. So people from all over the world come there to...
Yeah, in most cases, the distilleries are on the original grounds that they were built on in that area, because that's where bourbon has always been made, is in that area of Kentucky forever, right? And there are some things that like are required for something to be called bourbon, has to do with like a mash bill or a different kind of a, you know, composition or aging process, new barrels and such. But ultimately what ends up happening is that these different bourbon styles, they get aged in these like huge barns, and they evaporate as they age them in barrels. And so that creates a rarer whiskey, of course, because it's evaporating out of these like 55-gallon barrels. And you can go and experience all of those different places. So I think a lot of people have like their own favorite whiskeys, and like this one's the best or that one's the best.
Sure.
And you know me, I want to just like try
them all.
One of them.
Yeah. All right. So I got to get into, I have a question. You don't have to have the answer for this, but I've always been curious because I think people, it's easy for people to like conceptualize what you're talking about and compare it to like wine country, right? Like I think that's a little bit more, everyone knows Northern California, you know, there's a lot of other places other than that. But like, I guess what I always struggle with is, okay, so wine country, that's not just places where they decide to grow a bunch of grapes, right? Like grapes and the environments they can grow in are very specific. So they've found the places around the world where certain types of grapes can be grown. In other words, can't really grow good grapes in Michigan, right? So we ain't doing wine in Michigan. But like Southern Ontario has a pretty expansive wine region that most people don't know about. What I'm getting at is I've never fully understood, like, and excuse my, well, I don't need to swear. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say but I guess I never fully appreciated what is so unique to Kentucky. Like, why can't you age bourbon in North Dakota? In a barn in North Dakota? Like, is it climate? Is it something, a natural resource specific to that part of the country that
I think it's like, it is very much so like wine in that, if you get champagne, it's from the Champagne region in France, right? Sure. So you might get Prosecco, or you might get some sort of, you know, other white wine that I can't think of right now because it's not exactly my jam, but you know, I like to
technically it's only champagne if it's from.
Sure. And so that's, I think, pretty comparable to what bourbon, quote unquote, is. And I think honestly from there, at least from my understanding, and I don't want to be disrespectful to all those people because it's a really welcoming environment, which is why I think it's in Kentucky too. We could talk about that. But I think the deal is that like bourbon is generally like a marketing term, but it means that like they're supposed to be it's aged in newly charred barrels.
Got it.
You know, for whatever period it might be or it might not. So somebody in North Dakota who opens a distillery, they're probably going to make whiskey, or they're going to be asked probably, I don't know what the laws are on labeling. Labeling is weird for liquor, I think too, right?
Yeah, no, that's kind of, and I'm glad you're getting into this because it literally is like, well, you can't call it bourbon no matter what, right? Like no matter what in North Dakota, can you call it bourbon? Or does it have to be from Kentucky to be bourbon? Like,
you're not supposed to. No, you're not supposed to. I don't know about like if it's legal or not, or like maybe you could be sued or not. But
very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I have a person in my circle who just wrote a book on prohibition who might be interesting to bring on about some of those like facts a little bit better than like what I'm speculating.
Yeah, but no, I think the experience.
What the experience, I think that's a good pivot. Like what the experience is there is it's really welcoming, man. Like it's really a tourist type thing.
Okay.
But just like wine country, you know, there's alcohol being served over counter all day in these small increments, but that's a lot of, you know, adults like drinking and quite frankly driving around and like it was pretty cool. And it was pretty available. You know, they're pretty, it's a conservative part of the country, right? So I don't think they're totally open with the like alcohol and everybody being drunk, you know. I think
yeah. So it is keep your shit in check very much so, right? Like it's not it's not a spring break environment. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. And I don't know any wine areas to really feel that way either. I mean, the ones I've been to, it seems like everyone's at least acting mature.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. You know, and like I'm sure they're prepared if somebody's has overserved themselves from too many distilleries. So you drive around to these distilleries just like you do in wine country.
Got it.
And it's cool. It's great. I would recommend it if you're driving distance. I don't know that I'd fly in from across the country to go to the Bourbon Trail. But from where we were, we met some friends from Atlanta, and then we went down.
No, it's a perfect in between. So, like, what you guys get together, you grab lunch, you taste a bunch of, and then take a nap. Like, I need to understand how this is a productive day-long thing.
Like, it takes some time to get in between them, right? So, like, depending on whether you want to experience a bunch of distilleries, or like maybe you want to go to just the small distilleries where, like, you know, their bottles are literally only available there at the distillery place. You know, they're really rare. They may be great or they may not be great. You know, in general, the really good ones are owned by the bigger distilleries. But like, you know, it's kind of you kind of pick at what you want to look at. And so it just kind of consumes your day. And then there's a buying process as well, right? So, you know, if you're going there, and this is where I guess maybe since we're talking about this so much, I could make this part of the episode cover, but I think we brought back.
Oh yeah, I want the tally for sure.
So we're part of it's a new, like, a bourbon club.
You don't need to give the dollar amount. Just tell me how many bottles you brought back. No way.
I'm way too embarrassed about the dollar amount, but I think it was between us. I think the haul was probably like 45, 50 bottles.
Holy shit!
Yeah, man.
Are you serious?
Yeah, man.
Whoa! All right, so now we're talking about mass importing of toxic liquids. Now I'm really curious. No, I'm just kidding.
Illegal. It's all for personal consumption.
Yeah, who cares? I'm not really serious about that part. But all right, 40 to 50 bottles. All right, so, and you said a couple buddies, but really you're talking about you and two other guys, right? There were three of you.
Yeah.
So 40 to 50 bottles. And I think you expressed that you have a bar at your house. There's still a gap here. I don't think people are going to understand why you need 40 to 50 bottles of whiskey. Talk to them about your weekends. Yeah, like,
yeah, that was all of us. I collect bourbons like I collect sneakers in a way. For our listeners who kind of like catch up to it, I guess. But like, I'm looking over towards the bar right now where I have them open. I probably keep like 12 bottles of whiskey open at a time, and I mostly only have whiskey on my bar. So I just have them. Like, I like to have them. I like to get there's a low end and then a middle end and then a high end of like almost all of the whiskeys that I like from a brand name perspective. And so one of the things that was cool is that often you can't actually get the low end. So I ended up I bought 10 bottles this time that were less than $20, that were like the very, excuse me, like the youngest aged of like that aging process that I just described. Yeah.
Well, one of the other, and I brought that up is because I remember, like, you know, you've also in the past, and you've brought it up on the show, but participated in something. It's like, you know, it's a grown up excuse, and we call it professional, you know, marketing, development, whatever. But you and like 40 dudes get together and just eat copious amounts of wonderful food and try amazing.
Oh yeah, you're talking about
for a weekend.
Yeah.
Like, this is everyone thinks getting older is like, you know, so boring. We just fancy up the same bullshit we were doing when we were teenagers. We just find different ways to do it.
And I think, like, you know, whiskey owners, like people who are into them and are connoisseurs, they really fit together really well. Like, they seem like, you know, my kind of people, obviously.
They're snobs like Ryan. They're all fancy fuckers like Ryan.
It's like a controlled consumption thing is what it is. It's this weird controlled consumption dynamic that they all enjoy.
if you don't mind me saying, like, I do have to admit, I tease you about this stuff because admittedly, like, I love whiskey. I love whiskey so much that I don't drink whiskey. And that's always been my relationship with whiskey. Like,
I'm gonna grab some while you're talking.
I've been too fond of it. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't appreciate is, like, when it comes to becoming like a connoisseur of something, a lot of times you didn't become a connoisseur while you were stumbling around figuring it out. It came about over time. You were able to do it in a very, like, kind of controlled way. And I'm not just talking about alcohol, which obviously has a steeper learning curve than other things, but I think it just has to do with, like, how you get into things, and whether you do it in a very addictive manner and, like, all at once, 100%, I need it all. That's very hard to sustain. And like what Ryan is kind of talking about right now is this sustained relationship with something that many people can't have a sustained relationship with because, it has other effects. And if you like those effects, yeah, it usually is a kind of a short-term, really happy and tumultuous marriage that can end poorly. So I tease Ryan, but deep down, I'm really envious of his, like, self-control, and B, like, he needs to be teased. And C,
definitely.
I think it's just important for people to understand, like, when a bunch of grown-ups get together for a whiskey weekend, like, it's not cool. It's not cool to get drunk. Like, I'm sure people are getting a little comfortable, but we're not. People that participate in things like this probably have their shit in check, and, like, or else you don't get invited back. That's just
right.
That probably goes without saying, but I just, people, you never know what people get in their mind when what's it called? A wet, wild whiskey weekend.
No, man. So it's
web whiskey.
Yeah. So most of the people who are, like, on into their careers now were originally, like, web designers.
Yeah.
Like web designers in the early 90s type stuff.
So it's a bunch of professionals who have, they've got some money to eat good food and drink good whiskey. And
yeah, there's a lot of
professional, and, like, relationship building, like, really productive things that do come of these things. I'm constantly really cynical to Ryan about them.
There's a decent amount of mentees that attend these things now too. So it's become like a second generation of attendees.
That makes sense.
Are into those same kind of, like, connoisseurship type things. So we're going to take a little bit of a stab at that for those of our listeners who, are too boggled by the acquisition of 50 bottles of bourbon. But we're building, like, a little group here of kind of like a Detroit extended club, we'll say.
It's awesome. I think it's really cool.
Yeah. People are into it. And I learned it's kind of hard. If you're into whiskeys, it's hard to get them. And so it takes a little bit of time and effort to acquire, like, the ones that you might want to taste, or even, like, try new ones. So we're going to take a stab at helping people out at that.
I think that's really cool. Do you have a hope in mind for, like, when, and will it be the same type of thing where, like, you guys rent a cottage somewhere in, like, maybe southeastern Michigan and get together for a weekend? Are you trying to maybe start more like a one night type thing? I don't know.
No,
sorry to throw this at you, but
no, this is cool. I love to talk about this, and you tease me about this too, so I like it. Like, I had kind of interrupted you earlier that not too many people get to tease me because I'm, like, very serious. So I always appreciate it, Mike. But, like, it's a mastermind group, and so the mastermind group, the premise, although the members are confidential, it is that the group gets together, and whiskey is kind of part of it, but not the premise of it. And then once every meeting, one person of the group, it's probably I think we'll probably cap this one at 10 guys. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say guys, 10 people. And one person presents, and they sit they're on what's called the hot seat. And so they're going to present a problem that exists generally in their career, but it could be personal. But, for the most part, it's like a career problem to the rest of the group. And we're going to talk about it. And it takes a good amount of vulnerability, and it certainly takes a good amount of like confidence in each other.
Sure.
But yeah, we're putting together one of those groups, and so that's what I'm after. That's what the bourbon's all about. I feel like they take a real serious turn there, Mike.
No, it's appropriate. Like I said earlier, man, it's not, it's easy for people to conceptualize all these things, you know, in their own, but like I said, you can't really get away with doing stuff like that if you don't take something away from it at this point in our lives, right? Like it's hard to do the weekends away with the boys. But when it's a productive and, you know, you're getting something from it that you can bring back maybe to your house or definitely to your office, it just makes it a lot more kind of justifiable.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, and it kind of gives you like something, like you said, like makes it a little bit more justifiable to meet up. So I think we're going to start off quarterly, so it's not like a every month kind of thing. And it's a little, you know, it's not totally expensive, but it's a little bit of a spend to like come in. Sure. And, you know, we do like a little draft for the bourbons, and you know, there's a few of them are rare and some of them aren't, and that kind of a thing. But that's kind of the premise. Everybody shows up, drafts their bourbon. Yeah. I think it will be. Marvin, actually, who was on the show, shout out. Actually, one of our better performing shows of the recent past.
Do the Right Thing did get a lot of hits.
Yeah, a lot of hits on Do the Right Thing. So anyway, he's kind enough. I think he's going to host it. He's going to be one of the members. One of our other friends going to lead it, but he's going to host it at his office. So it'll be cool. I'm excited.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Hey, thanks for taking time to listen to Mike and I today. I wanted to talk to you just for 1 second about reviewing the podcast. It really, really helps us out, and it places us higher on search engines as well as the other podcast channels that publish our show. So if you listen to conventioNOT, you dig what you hear, take a second, go out, give us 5 stars, give us a few kind words, or just real words, whatever the hell you want to say, out there on the review channel of your podcast show.
You know, my last couple months have been good. I mentioned I had some people out to visit. I had a lot of work going on. You know, and I say that I'm really, really fortunate. 2020 ended on a really high note for me professionally, and I had a little bit of travel. I just went to Maui last week. It's a funny, interesting thing. Just, you know, it's 2021. We got to mention COVID at some point. So like, I don't know if people know any of these like travel restrictions. Most people probably aren't paying attention to going to Hawaii. But as right now, Hawaii and for months has had a restriction in place where if you're coming into the state, you need to be tested and show proof of negative before arriving here. It's a pretty elaborate process. And the challenge is it's a time window. So it's a 72-hour requirement. And I'm being very general here. It's a little bit different from island to island, and I'm not trying to get into specifics or like offer people advice on how to do this.
Way more important to look up than bourbon on the internet if you're still listening. Check out the travel requirements.
There's just some very specific things, because basically if you land in Hawaii, you have to quarantine. And if obviously if you haven't done this testing, and if you break quarantine, it's $5,000 fine and or jail. So they've been like rigidly enforcing that here, and you know, it doesn't matter who you are. They pop you. I think they actually busted is it Rick Rubin? He's the music producer.
Yeah,
Rick Rubin broke protocol, dude. They threw his ass in jail.
Damn,
on like day 2. So
shout out Rick Rubin.
I mean, and it's kind of tough, dude, because like the picture I see, and he's like by himself on some beach, no one's around him. So I'm not here to say what's right and wrong. That's not my opinion. But what I want to share is the other day for me to go to Maui, I have to do this examination of a piece of evidence that's involved in a case, and it's a group examination. So a bunch of people from basically there's like guys in from California. There's lawyers from different islands. So it's a pretty coordinated, scheduled thing that's going to be available for a limited amount of time. But to go from Oahu to Maui, which is about a half an hour flight for me, I have to also take that testing. That testing needs to be within 72 hours of leaving, or else I'm SOL. So it just adds a really new layer of stress to, Ryan, you know more about work travel than I do, but now there's like a test you have to take within a window. Like I had to go to two different places to get the test.
Really?
Because the first place
test or
the nasal. So the first one I went to, and it was a rapid test. So I knew I was going to have my results in time. But they told me pretty quickly, and mind you, this is one of the trusted partners. There's a list of them according to the state of Hawaii. So I went to one of the trusted partners, and the girl said, "This is just for your own curiosity, right?" I said, "What?" She said, "Are you taking this test? Like, this is just so you know, right?" And I was like, "What the fuck? No, this isn't just so, like, are you serious? Why would I care, but no, I need to fly." She's like, "Oh, this is inadequate for travel." So I'm like, "All right, great. Yeah, stick that thing up my nose. Where can I go to get one adequate for travel?" "Oh, you got to go to the airport." So I had to go to the airport, stand in line. It's like $150 fee. And I got my test at the dude. So, I mean, when all was said and done, and then I have to submit those results, I get a QR code. So you basically, at that point, you turn into a human barcode. And when you land, if that barcode ain't in the system, they know. They know.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You can't rent a car. You can't leave the airport.
Okay. So is it, are they testing for the active virus? Or are they testing for the antibody?
Active virus.
Active virus. Does the antivirus test get you like a golden ticket or anything, or no?
The antibody one? If
antibody, you like how I combine words.
I like that. I don't think so. And like, to my understanding, it's like they want to complicate it, but keep it as simple as possible. So there's no levels. It's a pass or fail. It's pass or fail. That's it.
Sure.
Probably. Yeah. But man, would I give anything to know if I had the antibodies? Like, where do I get? I'm up to 4 tests now. I've taken 4 tests since this whole thing started. I mean, I'm sure. How many have you taken?
I only took 1.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
They're not as readily available here. I don't guess, but I should go take another test. I don't go anywhere other than.
I'm just trying to get my vaccination on. That's where do I get a vaccination? That's what I want to sign up for, dude. And I'm like, is there a tier 11? I think I'm in tier 11.
Why? I guess tier 11. Well, we're gonna pivot here to the inauguration at some point. We're one day into the new presidency, and I think the vaccinations are gonna get worked out well. I think it's going to work out pretty well.
I hope. My wife is a teacher. She's headed back to school. And it's, I don't know how they're doing this everywhere, but here they're actually like almost like regionally specific. They're like producing surveys and getting feedback from the parents and the teachers, just in terms of, and the most recent survey my wife shared with me is the state basically got back to them and said, "Okay, so we have enough vaccinations for about 30% of the people that want that."
Okay. Yeah, that probably makes sense.
Like, well, yeah, I mean, it's better to know than not know, but at the same time, it's like, hey, if you're hungry, get in line. Oh, shit. We didn't know so many of you were hungry.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be the harder part, which I don't think is going to go away with the vaccination, is that we're going to have to start to deal with the challenge, I think, of the hunger. But I think, look, what we've done in America forever is during the time of like war, and this really is like a war against a virus, right?
Yeah, sure.
We've buckled down and produced what we need to produce. So I think that the production goes up continually, almost at like maybe like a parabolic type of a level.
Sure.
And so that way the vaccinations can kind of go up at like a parabolic type level, because I doubt we're going to like force everybody to be vaccinated. I think very much so it should and could be a personal choice. But I think the majority of Americans, at least it seems like to me, the majority of rational Americans need to like get back to a normal lifestyle. And so
to me, that's the only, at least at this time, there's no other route to normalcy. I'm not saying that one doesn't exist, but like no one has told us about it. I'm not aware of one. And I'm not saying that vaccination is the solution, but shit, does that mean if everyone in your house gets vaccinated, does that mean like y'all get to go back to work, your kids get to go back to school? That's at least like that's
like in light posts.
How exciting is that to think? And bro, we don't even have any kids. Neither one of us has the problems that most Americans are dealing with. And I don't mean to say having kids is the problem, but the challenges of having to homeschool your children and also work and pay your bills.
Right.
It's at a point where like conversations with parents, I'm just like, how you doing? Are you okay?
Yeah. That's tough.
It's impossible, dude. It's impossible. And you're seeing people split at the seams, man. Like there's been a lot of, well, I don't think any of that has anything to do, but like, I just know for humanity, people have been stressed, man. People have been stressed and really stretched to their limits this past while. It hasn't been months now. We're going into February, dude. This is like when it first started a year ago.
I bet some of those women and men might like to be part of my bourbon club. They're really stressed.
I think anyone would like to be invited to your club. I think that's why I tease you so much, is because I've been to a couple like Scotch nosings, but it's been a while since I got really invited to any sort of club or anything like that.
Well, it's a little exclusive. It's going to be a little exclusive. I'm sorry, but if you're on the chain, you know who you are. You know what you know. But
I wanted to mention something else.
Sure.
Unless you had something specific, it's a real pivot. It has nothing to do with what we've been talking about.
I'd prefer a pivot. I think we've covered that well enough.
Ryan doesn't like talking about that stuff. Well, I made raviolis.
Some of the people who are involved, to be fair, because this goes out on the internet forever, some of the people who are involved might not, like to be identified. So that's it. I'll go from there.
Yeah. I made raviolis. I like to cook. I didn't really get real creative with my flour because I wanted to start, with just a baseline. Hold on, I'll grab it, because it was the most expensive flour at the store, but I don't think it was like, it's probably vegan flour or some shit.
I think flour is vegan for our listeners while Mike goes off. I'm pretty sure, but you, again, after the order of Googling you might want to do today could be first COVID things, second bourbon, then third whether vegan flour is not a real thing.
Whatever vegan even is. All right, so I got, it's just the white all-purpose.
Okay.
Unbleached. It said excellent for baking, which isn't what I did with raviolis, but I wanted to I'm bringing that up not to brag. They did turn out phenomenal.
They're so good.
Dude, making your own dough, not like pizza dough, but pasta dough.
Yeah, real thin stuff.
There's a reason it's so expensive. I don't think like it. If you make it, it can't taste. It's always good. I mean,
do you maybe have not always crank thing?
Yeah, I'm not talking about flattening it. I'm talking about kneading it. About turning flour and eggs into what you need to then roll out and produce spaghetti, ravioli, anything. The kneading of it, like when you think of someone making pasta, it's like a little old lady, right? And she's smashing together this ball of dough. I'm not a little old lady, and I wanted to quit about 3 minutes into doing that. It was very physically demanding.
Yeah.
So I don't have like a food processor. I don't have the Cuisinart mixer. those things would have definitely made my life a little bit easier. But like, I'd rather go outside and mix cement. Maybe not a lot of it, but a little bit of cement, I feel like is a little bit easier to toss around than making dough. Did I make it wrong? Has this been your experience or what?
Well, so you made a pile of your flour. You broke the appropriate number of eggs. Did you weigh the flour?
No, I did not.
It's a big one.
I just measured it.
You gotta weigh it, man.
But the specification was by cup, not by weight.
You weigh it.
But what if I don't know how much it's supposed to weigh?
You need to find a recipe that has just like a weight.
Okay.
Yeah. Because that'll help you be confident in what like the right ratio of that you have from a good recipe, so that you could get this. But yeah, I definitely identify with doing that before. I've done it. So you could also another thing that I've learned, which I don't make it a lot now because I've gone gluten-free the way of the devil, but is that you can sift that flour. You know how like your mom, when she made pies back in the day, she had like a flour sifter, like that thing. That also helps with making pasta like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not an expert.
I'm not ready to give up.
For an episode in the future, we could talk about pasta. We could probably bring that up. I bet we could get some tips from either Will or Chris about that.
Someone who actually knows something about it. Yeah, no, that'd be great. I grew up eating, my mom always made pasta. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a big thing to do for a big family.
It's spaghetti. Like she wouldn't make ravioli or anything. I mean, sure she could, but she'd make spaghetti, man. So I remember just seeing racks of spaghetti.
Wow.
So I just thought, cool thing. Dude, just like so many other things, I just thought that's what's everyone's, she made the homemade pasta. She made the sauce. Yeah, I just thought that's what spaghetti tasted like, man. Then I go over to my buddy's house and his mom's making Chef Boyardee. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
That shit's
this
salty.
Is disgusting.
Yeah. But it translates. It does translate.
Yeah, man.
So the other thing that I know, this will be the last thing. I had a whole thing maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I went down like the bourbon, but I went down some pasta trails. But it's semolina flour.
Yeah, that's okay. I was gonna go to my like kind of nicer store to look for a different type of flour. Is that what I should be seeking out?
I would go Amazon with it because you're probably going to get like a quicker, fresher quality. But yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
How about this? Here's next level, bro.
There's a whole show. I think Aziz Ansari did a show called.
Yeah.
It was on Netflix, and he did a whole season about learning to make pasta, right?
Well, yeah, he just like quits his career, moves to Italy, and learns how to make pasta. What show was that?
Masters of None.
There you go. Well done. So I recently got a package from my sister, the one that lives in northern Italy.
Okay.
Included in said package was this.
Ooh.
So I think this is focaccia flour.
Yeah. 100% focaccia flour.
So the only problem is I don't have an oven. So baking isn't really an option at the moment.
You got a pizza stone or something?
I do not.
You can make that on a pizza stone.
Well, and then what? Throw it on the grill?
100%.
Yeah, that'd be.
I bet one of your buddies has pizza. I bet your neighbor has a pizza stone. It's pretty popular.
This box alone, I can't go through this whole box with you on the show. That would just upset people too much.
Fresh Italian goods Mike has for our foodie listeners.
Yeah.
Straight from Italy.
Yeah.
Risovi, traditional risotto. Man, well, risotto, I guess, would be here in America, but
it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Wow. I got some really good balsamics.
Ooh.
Yeah.
How much grape must is in that balsamic? Take a look at the label for our listeners who really nerd out about balsamic. We might be losing some this year, but we want to really hone in on some real expert subjects.
I don't know, bro.
Oh, they might not. I guess they might not publish it till they put the U.S. label on it, huh?
Just a 6% acidity, but yeah, they always everything they send me, man. It's just sometimes just having a label on it that you can't understand makes things taste better, you know?
What's your risotto game like?
Rusty?
Rusty? Yeah, fair enough.
I used to get down though. There's something to me that was always a really fun challenge about like taking a half an hour to cook rice. Cause like you can do it in 10, but it's not as good. Risotto. It's not as good. It's just mushy rice. Yeah. And then when you do it right, you're just like, oh, this was different. Hey, if that sounds like you or someone you know, you need to ramp up your efforts to isolate now. We're all going to get through this, but it's going to take a shared sacrifice. Keep your head up, stay positive, but for all of our sakes, be accountable, and let's all practice social distancing.
So I've been watching, my addiction over the cold ass weather here in Michigan has been streaming shows for sure.
Sure. You ain't the only one, dude. All of our addiction. What do you got? Be honest with me. What's the one that people don't know you're watching?
Well, I hope nobody knows what I'm watching. I guess somebody might have my password somewhere, but so what I'm proud to share. There's two that I've been really enthralled with. One was called Imposters, which was it was an Amazon show.
Yep. Nicole watched. I watched a few episodes of that one, and yeah, that was intriguing.
Yeah, we have, I think, things like you do, and I think like a lot of couples do, where like we have shows that we watch on our own, and the other spouse will like tune into a few of them, and then vice versa, right? And then we have just ones that we watch together, right? And so I'm just talking about the ones I've been watching on my own. So Imposters was a good one, but the one that's really, really had me recently is Lucifer.
You mentioned that recently, so I don't know Lucifer at all. I don't know.
Oh man. So Lucifer's as far as I know, most of these things again are true. So I always give that disclaimer to Google, but it's a DC show that started years ago on like network TV somewhere.
Okay.
And so it moved from there at some point to Netflix. And the star of the show is the devil. His name's Lucifer. Lucifer Morningstar. And it's fucking good, man. Have you?
I don't. I think I've probably seen the cover of it. You know what I mean? But I've never. But I love me some DC. You know how I crushed Boys. Like I don't know if Boys is DC or whatever, but yeah, all those sorts of movies, they get me. The shows are even better.
Yeah, I like the shows better than the movies too, because it gets a little bit more like story development, right? Like you can tell. That's always
my intrigue is usually in the like backstory and the development. So,
and I think that it may have originally been a comic book, like
Boys, or Lucifer.
Lucifer.
Yeah, I'm sure if it's a DC, you know, like at some point it probably was in print. I'm trying to think, dude. I don't have any super new ones. Let's see. I stumbled upon. Did you ever see the show? And this is an old one, but I just started watching it recently. Parenthood.
Oh, I remember that show.
Dax Shepard is in it, and
okay.
It's like basically a bunch of. No, this is. I think it's probably the same one. It's like 2000s.
Okay.
No, not when we were kids. Yeah, no, it's definitely older. Would have been like when we were in college, I think.
Okay. Yeah. This is like Dax's breakout role.
Yeah. I really like that show. That show's like just checking some boxes lately. I told you that I recently went down a road with an old friend of Northern Exposure. That show is I can't think of any new shows I've been watching, but yeah, like I just revisit old shows that I love. And
dude, I know we've been watching one.
What?
Ugly Betty.
Oh wow, Yeah, you mentioned that. That's when you and the missus have been watching, right?
Yeah, that's what we've been watching together. It got queued back up. There's the new streaming platform Peacock, and so we don't have the like pay for membership.
Okay.
We just have free membership, and it works out like pretty well. They got a lot of stuff on there, but one of them is Ugly Betty.
I don't know Ugly Betty, but we love Superstore. And I know like that's a completely different, but she's phenomenal. And that show, dude, revisiting Superstore, that's one that I've kind of like rediscovered and just binged like, whoa, yeah. I gotta put this away for a little bit, you know.
Garrett and Dina.
Yeah, Peacock stole The Office, man. You know, The Office isn't on Netflix anymore. That was, I can't believe I didn't talk about that. That was a real tragedy. Everything else that happened in 2020, whatever. But take The Office off
of Netflix. I think that, well, we're going to watch, 2021 is going to be the year of the pivot of the streamers. It's going to break down.
What do you mean?
So they're going to start to call back the licensing, and the major networks are going to start to, like, especially like NBC and probably ABC too. Even though ABC's Disney, so they already kind of got their own thing going on, which they've been doing. They're going to start to pull the licensing away from like Netflix,
the Hulus and the Netflix and the
really? Yeah, I think so. They'll have their own native apps now. Yeah. They got to get the ad money, man. They got to get the exposure to keep making those shows.
Because it does make sense. Because how else do those shows like?
Right. Yeah, it's expensive.
ABC gonna die before Netflix does? Like that's hard to.
No, they're both production empires now.
No.
So yeah, because
like Netflix going forward isn't going to have like. I mean, I guess it's got to start from ground zero now, right? They've been borrowing everyone else's stuff, but they're starting to produce a lot of their own content, you know, and.
Yeah, and I think that licensing kind of works like it works differently, I'm sure, for every single show because it's so complex, right? And so I'm sure there are a lot of shows that, you know, that maybe would cross, you know, platforms. We haven't seen that develop in the market yet.
Yeah.
You know,
I know for me, when it comes to licensing, one of my favorite shows, older show, is Scrubs. I don't know, you know, like Dr. Zach Braff, Donald Faison. When that came out, I want to say it's on Hulu. They lost all the music. So that show, watching it without the original, dude, it was unwatchable. It was like a completely different show.
Acapella.
Dude, I've never been so like I never noticed how much the music like played a role in that show. And more recently, they like got it back. So if you watch it again now, it's like, oh, my old friend is back. You know, whereas, you know, you watch it a couple years ago, you're like,
so many situational things in that show where like it's kind of like,
and the music was a huge part of it. Yeah, like my understanding is like the music selection was one of the like biggest. There was a ton of emphasis put on that. You know, it wasn't an afterthought. It was something that was like very deliberate and very crucial to the, you know, the storyline and just the audience appeal. And to put it out there, you know, with no pants on, you're just like, this ain't the same. This sucks. This is disappointing. So yeah, that licensing shit is weird. It's really complicated.
The universal way in the McDevitt household to speak about that is whether the show quote unquote holds up.
Yeah,
and has been watching MASH lately. Actually,
nice.
She was mentioning that it only kind of holds up because of like so many of the comedic references that just wouldn't be able to be put out today.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
so
I'm like that with Cheers. I believe that. I mean, Cheers, I wouldn't say necessarily holds up. It's just, it is what it always has been. But I still love it. It's just a simple show that, I mean, like Northern Exposure, dude. I can't say that holds up, but at the same time, I don't know that it ever did. Like, it was always just a weird, quirky show. So
it was on for a lot of seasons.
It was a big show, though. Yeah, I mean, I want to say probably 7+ seasons. but definitely, unfortunately, one of those shows where like the last couple seasons they had a lot of shit going on. Apparently, like people didn't get along, writers changed. You watch the last 2 seasons of that show and it's more like fucking Twin Peaks. You're just like, what are they even, what happened to the show we used to watch? Like,
how old is that? Early 90s?
Probably. Yeah, I mean, like that one is pre-college. Yeah, very much so. Like early 90s where, I mean, there's definitely a couple episodes where you're just like, who thought this was okay? The whole episode, they're going to act like this? Like, oh man, this is...
What the fuck?
Yeah, very much a different time. Very much a different time.
All right. Well, I guess speaking of time, we've gotten here to the end. Let's pivot it. If you don't know by now, you listen to conventioNOT. You like that? That was pretty smooth, wasn't it? I'm trying to get my radio announcer voice down. So if you don't know by now, it's conventioNOT at conventioNOT _podcast everywhere, anywhere. We're on LinkedIn. We're on some new podcast platform in India. So if this is being translated to India, we really appreciate you. We're worldwide, Mikey. We are.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We love y'all. Happy 2021. Better days ahead.
See ya.